A molecule steps perpetually into the present. It will let go to blend. It rotates a power to western willow groves, from marshes or ice quilts quite east, that not one new drop shall be slighted till it is due, till government hopes blue, into the longing system of the molecule. It haunts and is haunted, brooding and laughing in western yellow groves. Look out, Senator. Perilous little word couplings. So this is just one excerpt from Brenda Hillman's Practical Water, which is one of the texts we'll be exploring in this course. So you're probably wondering, why is a cis straight white man facilitating a explorations in ecofeminism course? Well, I had the privilege of actually seeing Brenda Hillman speak recently at a Philadelphia event. Well, a year ago, but that's recent in these modern times. But and was really inspired by how she infuses poetry with political action and advocacy. And that really got me thinking as an outdoor educator how we can bring in that ecofeminist perspective into our interactions with the more than human world. So bringing in this perspective into a traditionally hypermasculine realm. Specifically within the program I work with at the moment, um, I see many women stepping up to leadership roles and feeling a really strong sense of ownership, and a lot of that stems from the care. So I think it's really important to explore these texts, which is why I'm really excited about introducing this course to you all. All right, so specifically our course learning outcomes are that we are going to apply an ecofeminist theory to future outdoor program facilitation. So traditionally we use works from individuals such as John Muir, which if you're following current things, we see a lot of his overt racism coming up. So how we can bring in different voices into our reflection activities and really facilitate a more inclusive environment, which leads right into our next learning outcome, which is critiquing the voices which are represented commonly in naturalist writings. And then finally, we're going to describe how poetry specifically can be used to influence political change. Applying this course specifically, I looked at Module 4, which is Commodification in the Anthropocene. And I selected this module specifically because I'm interested in the relationship between the commodification of both women and the view of our more than human world as a resource rather than something we interact with. So really taking that deeper look into seeing our true global community and recognizing the inequities and injustices that are prevalent throughout our global society. So specifically for this module, we have 5 learning outcomes. So discern the intersection of both women and land as a resource, compare indigenous ways of knowing to postmodern ecofeminist literature, define the patriarchal influence of colonization, compare how the erasure of indigenous concepts such as two-spirit connect to the colonized gender binary. And finally, we're going to reflect on the influence of capitalism and its relation to gender oppression. And we're going to achieve this specifically by bringing in the works of indigenous poets, as well as bringing in some works from Afro-Latin poetry. So as mentioned just a little bit ago, this module introduces the genre of Afro-Latin art, specifically the work of poet Crystal Good. This module features the video of her poem Boom Boom, which juxtaposes the industry of women stripping with the stripping of resources through mountaintop removal in the Appalachia region. Often when one thinks of this region, it is poor rural white miners waiting for the resurgence of the coal industry. But Afro-Latin brings forward the voice of Black people who are disproportionately affected by poverty in this area just as they are in the greater United States. Perfect. Also in this module, we're going to bring in a focused indigenous perspective. So specifically, we're going to read the first half of Corpse Whale, which is by Inuit poet D.G. Nanook Okpik, who's pictured on the right if you're looking at the screen. And we're also going to be really critically evaluating some work of the Mishi Sagig, Nishabek artist and scholar Leanne Bedesamoke Simpson. And often when one thinks of feminism and environmental activism, it is the white voices that come to the forefront, like Brenda Hillman, who I started this little presentation off with. But as the title of one of my favorite books that Simpson wrote is, "It is as we have always done," meaning that Indigenous women and non-binary folks have been applying environmental leadership long before the U.S. was colonized. All right, so for the delivery of this course, obviously we're in a virtual environment right now. I'm going to be utilizing Moodle just because it's very user-friendly, easy to apply, easy to work with, and our students have been using this platform for most of their coursework. So kind of the layout is we're going to start off by watching the video features here. So I mentioned earlier about Crystal Good's poem. So these videos all infuse not only the voice of the poet themselves speaking it as it should be spoken according to their writing, but also include some visual representation. They two of the videos are closed captioning. The third video, unfortunately, did not have a closed captioning feature, but I did upload the text for the work in our resource folder just so we can make sure that those who are hard of hearing can still access the material. In addition to that, we're specifically going to be analyzing how to steal a canoe. So there's an additional article that goes through and takes a look at that lens as well. So we're going to watch the video first. Students are going to be encouraged to process it, reflect on it, how they interpret it, then read the work of another scholar so we can tie that all in. So this module is really dependent on student interaction. So we have our discussion post activity as well as a share an activity post. So I'm constantly learning and finding new people that I love to read and listen to. So this is almost as much for me as it is for the other students to really give them the ownership. So they're actually going to identify an Indigenous activist who infuses art in their work to inspire others. And then finally, each module, I found this really helpful in one of the courses I took in the fall was to have a non-graded journal reflection component in each module. So this is a space where the student can just write how they're feeling about the course, if they're struggling with anything, if they have anything going on personally, so that I as the instructor or the facilitator are aware of what's going on in their life and I can offer them that proper support. And it's a no pressure situation. They can write as much or as little as they want. You can also upload a picture if you prefer to draw or do some other art form, or even write a poem. That would be great. But yeah, so lots of engagement in this module, and I'm excited to work with some students. All right, so there's two discussion prompts, as I mentioned earlier. So specifically, we're going to take the broader look with prompt 1, as you can see here, and then the second piece of the discussion post is that really critical analysis lens. So that's what we're striving to do throughout this course, is to get our students thinking critically about how things are presented to us and how we can process different meanings that we may find throughout different art forms and just general communication. So this activity will provide an opportunity to reinforce the community of co-learning as students not only identify the Indigenous activists, but they evaluate and present the course learning materials both from themselves and their peers. And this post doesn't merely just have the student post them, but they're actually evaluating the voice, and they're looking about how they could infuse this activist in future applications, whether that be through guiding facilitation, whether it be through future classroom approaches, or just in conversing with their peers and friends. And finally, like everything I do in my learning process, this is an adaptive praxis. So this module established multiple approaches to foster student engagement and ownership of their learning. The materials were both broad for interpretation, yet refined to help students identify connections, which will set them up for their signature assignment towards the end of the course, which is a pretty significant writing assignment where they're going to be critically evaluating and analyzing the works of a specific poet. And it's also going to activate engagement from the instructor, because the instructor or the facilitator of the course, I don't like to say instructor, should actively engage in the course content and really demonstrate that learning process, that the instructor, the facilitator, the teacher, professor, whatever words you want to use, isn't necessarily some expert that has all the information, but is there guiding the students through the learning process and really engaged in what the students are bringing to the table. I learn something every time I interact with almost everyone in everyday life. So that's really what I want to strive to do, and that really connects to what the philosophy of ecofeminism is really all about, so we can really establish that feminist care ethic to not only our interactions with the more than human world, but our fellow humans in our everyday life. So thanks for checking this out, and I'm excited to hopefully teach this in the future, or at least participate in something similar. All right, cheers. Thank you.